Hello and welcome to today's webinar called Beyond the AI Echo Chamber. I'm really excited about today's topic because AI is such a popular and important topic today in many areas of our lives, but certainly in the legal tech world as well. So this is going to be a really exciting conversation for us today. Before we jump into the topic and I introduce our speakers, there are a few housekeeping items I want to address. First of all, today's webinar is recorded. In fact, it was recorded a couple of days ago. You are not watching the live event. You are watching a recording from 2 days ago. However, I still would love to invite you to ask your questions in the chat. The reason for this is after our webinars, we always will post a blog post and send you the link to it so that you can have a reminder of what was discussed in the webinar and see the questions and answers that get addressed both from today, because we do have some people who are watching with us today and will ask questions, as well as your questions that you may want to ask in today's event as well. So please do feel free to interact. We will follow up with you later or make sure that the questions are answered in the blog post. This event will be on demand later. So if you are finding this conversation especially interesting and valuable to you and you would like to share it with people on your team or within your community, you will be able to do so. We will send you a link so you can watch the on-demand recording. The last thing that I want to address is that this webinar is not a product-focused webinar at all. This is a webinar that is sponsored by Reveal. However, we are not talking about Reveal products on this webinar. That said, if you would like to learn more about Reveal technology products, which are powered by AI, I would welcome you to request a demo. If you look in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see a blue button that says request a demo. If you were to click on that button, our team would follow up with you afterwards to talk with you about what sorts of products might be interesting to you to see and learn more about. All right, so with that, I am so pleased to be able to introduce our speakers today. We have two really fascinating people who are joining us today. First of all, we have Kelsey Curry, who is joining us as the Senior Legal Global Technology Specialist from MSA Safety. Kelsey, thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Sarah, for the great introduction. Just want to bring up a side note here. You'll see my microphone lighting up. Please go ahead and ignore that. It's not a weird AI thing, just how my microphone works. But anyway, really excited to talk AI today and how it's going to change the legal landscape.
Very cool. So let me tell a little bit to the audience about what I've learned about you, Kelsey. So Kelsey, through our getting to know each other, I know that you bring a lot of experience in digital innovation and emergent technologies. You are really passionate about developing legal tech solutions, specifically in the arenas of automation and AI that tackle real business and legal challenges. And that's the reason that we invited you here today to have this conversation with us. And then I understand that beyond implementing self-service tools and automated workflows, you also spend time working to integrate AI solutions that really empower lawyers and legal professionals to focus on high-value activities instead of just busy work. So you are a perfect person to join us today for this conversation. Glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
And then our second speaker who's going to join us today is Judy Lau-Klinker, who is the Director of Legal Operations at Prologis. Judy, welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here today. Let me share a little bit with the audience about what I've learned about you. You very expertly oversee all aspects of workflow, processes, budget, and vendor management for the entire legal department. When I spoke with you in anticipation of this event a few weeks ago, it was clear that this is an area where your experience goes deep and you have a lot of passion and perspectives that I'm excited for you to share with the audience today. You let me know that you have over 2 decades of experience in the legal industry, and you are really proud of your unwavering commitment to fulfill the legal team's operational dreams. I love how you put that. I think that's such a great way to say it. You have told me that before you were at Prologis, you led legal operations for Compass Real Estate and for Blackstone, and you also are a certified eDiscovery specialist. And so this makes you, again, another perfect person to have with us on this call today as we dig into the questions of how does AI really help and work in the legal landscape, legal tech landscape. So both of you, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Super stoked.
All right, let's get started with our conversation about AI and getting kind of out of the echo chamber when it comes to AI in legal tech. So the first question that I want to bring up, maybe I'll start with directing this to you, Kelsey. AI is so common today in our lives. It is in the headlines. I don't know about you both, but when I look at my phone in the evening to see what happened in the day, there's always something about AI in my feed. And for instance, I find myself usually using ChatGPT to ask questions a lot where I maybe used to use Google. I will go to ChatGPT, or I'm really enjoying the generative AI bot that is now appearing in a Google search. But I would like to talk about the scope of AI in the context of legal tech. Like what I was just talking about in my life is just how I'm observing AI infiltrating many areas of our lives. But when we look at specifically legal tech, what do you two or most people in the legal industry think about when you hear AI in the context of legal tech? So Kelsey, you first. What's your view on this?
So I think that's a great question. I think a couple of different things happen whenever people hear AI in the legal sphere. I think you have the early adopters who have been playing with ChatGPT, Bard, Bing, Claude. All of them have their different strengths. We can go into that later. And are just really, really excited about how AI is going to transform everything for us. On the opposite end of the spectrum, I think you have lawyers and legal professionals who have heard the warnings and are staying as far away as they can until it's more of a proven technology. They've heard about the confidentiality issues, hallucination issues, and they want to see what the early adopters do, which is very fair. Mm-hmm. And then you have everyone else who's in the middle and might not be interested at all, might be too busy, and those that have AI fatigue at this point, because like you said, we're hearing about it all the time. I think that one of the things that we can agree on are that there are so many vendors that have jumped on the AI bandwagon. It's enough to make you or your inbox dizzy. And it's kind of tough sometimes to cut through what's truly AI and what's some kind of logic-based automation.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah. Thanks for that perspective. Judy, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Kelsey. I do think that AI has been around in the legal tech department for like a while. It just hasn't been utilized to the extent that ChatGPT has like blown up. And while I am one of the few that I do think that the ChatGPT or the AI of today can only enhance like a lot of our workflows and legal processes, there are, some caveats to that, right? So like in legal tech, our lawyers should be worried, right? There's confidentiality breaches. There's what's going out to, machine learn, train like these wide grade, World Wide Web sort of databases. And it's like, do you want your client's confidential information out there? Do you have specifics on what is going out there? What's being leaked out there? I think, at my company in particular, we are embracing AI, but in a very controlled, phased approach where we're trying to maybe localize our AI so we know that it is just a closed instance with our company only.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Judy, would you explain a little bit what that might mean? I can imagine we have some people listening in today who don't understand what it means to say you've close it in. Can you describe that?
Absolutely. I think so. I think a lot of people, when they first heard like ChatGPT, they're like, oh my God, it's so cool. It like writes all these things for me. Oh my God. Like, hey, ChatGPT, like, let me give you this prompt that like, insert my paper here, make it sound better. And I think what people didn't realize is you are sending this information out in the first instance to the wide world web. That is, this AI machine is scraping the entire world, the entire database of like everything that's ever been published to the web and giving you an intelligent solution back that's like proprietary and it's awesome. However, from a legal standpoint or like a legal document standpoint, there's a lot of confidential information that can be within some of these documents or a company's crown jewels. And one thing you don't want to be exposed to that, you don't want trade secrets or like very, very high level information out in the public. And so I think a lot of technology teams, I think, are trying to be like pump the brakes on AI a little bit so that we can understand like where the data is flowing to, because there isn't quite the understanding of where that's going to. And I think like our technology department has done a really great job of being adopters of AI, but in a controlled area where they can sort of, Microsoft has been really great about making sure that they sort of limit the information of where it's getting scraped from. Either, it's limited by the time bar of like, hey, all the information in our database is current as of like 2022. Nothing else is current beyond that. And it's a closed environment. So yes, some of your stuff may be outdated, but it is a limited area so that your data is not going out into the world publicly.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean when I say that, we're trying to limit our stuff. And that's on a grander IT scale for like our company. And I think a lot of legal technologies today that have incorporated AI into their products are also facing that kind of dilemma with clients that are in the legal space, because I think a lot of lawyers want to be like, so if I ask this question inside your AI tool, like, does that mean everyone can see what I asked, or like, where does this go? And without that definitive answer, where does it go? I think the legal industry will always be like, we're gonna wait a second on this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for that explanation. I think I maybe cut you off on a different topic or a different direction of the question you were going down. Do you want to go back to that, or did I sidetrack you?
No, I was agreeing with Kelsey where I feel like the definition of AI is you got to be really careful, because to her point, it was very much there's the AI that everyone sees today. And there's some people who are like, hey, we have AI. But when you get in the background, you're like, this is just conditional logic and it's setting up rules, and that's not AI. So.
Right. So that is maybe just quickly, either Judy or Kelsey, either one of you, let's give the audience your perspective on that just a little bit more, maybe a little education in case they haven't experienced or heard this before. You said that AI has been around for a long time. Give some examples where maybe this has existed for a long time, but perhaps somebody didn't realize that it was AI or machine learning or this logic that you're like fancy Boolean logic that's now being called AI, but it isn't. Can you give some examples of where that might have been used in the past when it was fine and now it feels a little more intimidating?
Yeah, so I know that in the contract space, we've been using AI for a couple years now. Before it was flashy, in a funny way to put that. But no, I mean, being able to do that has really been a game changer for us. And now with the advent of generative AI, it's just getting more and more exciting. But like on the conditional logic side, automation is always going to have a special place in my heart. I think it's the unsung hero of a lot of legal departments and firms. It's what got me into legal ops in the first place.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. You get into those logic-based workflows that maybe are just generating a document, not generating it as in drafting it for you, but just choosing the right document based on logic, stuff like that. It's not AI, but it's still important. And I think it's something that'll continue to be important in the legal landscape.
Yeah. In the contract space, like I've seen it do wonders. From the eDiscovery space, I feel like AI has been around for a really long time and people just maybe didn't realize it. I remember when, you have like technology assisted review, TAR 1, TAR 2.0, and, then it's graduated into like ECA tools, early case assessment tools, and then you have products like, and this is in no way, shape, or form like a sales of it, but like you have things like BrainSpace, for instance, where it's like a huge AI realm that I think was ahead of its time. And people just didn't know how to use it yet. They were like, this is too much information. I don't understand how to utilize it. But it was, that's been around way before ChatGPT, BARD, all these things came out. And I feel like in that aspect, we were ahead of our time with AI and utilizing sort of those early assessments to be like, hey, we can cut down your discovery spend by like millions of dollars by doing an early case assessment and just looking at your data to make sure that only the relevant data are going out to outside counsel versus like trying to just be like, hey, let's just export everyone's inboxes and give it to outside counsel to review. And, 100 contract attorneys later and a $2 million doc review bill later, you're like, oh, the relevant universe was 2,000 documents. Well, that sucks. So,
right.
So I feel like AI has been kind of in the legal tech space, like as an unsung hero that's existed before any of it blew up into mainstream. So,
yeah. Judy, that's a great transition into another question I have here in my notes for us, which is AI specifically in eDiscovery. The question I wanted to ask is, how have you seen AI transforming the eDiscovery process in your experience? And are there some specific instances where AI has made a significant difference to ROI, either cost, efficiency of time, of people? You already addressed this a little bit, but let's go maybe into a bit more detail of what you have seen specifically in eDiscovery. And then Kelsey, jump in, same question to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like ECA tools are underutilized a lot because I think a lot of people get scared in the legal industry of like, how trustworthy is it? And same with like TAR, right? With technology assisted review. I think it's our legal industry hasn't quite gotten comfortable with the intelligence of machine learning, and that is kind of like this push and pull. I think because those of us who are like, hey, this actually is a significant cost savings, right? To what I said before, like instead of exporting out like 100 inboxes that each have like 50 gigs of data, I could use an ECA tool to be like, or, look at it and be like, hey, I want to limit it to this entire scope of data and just show me those relevant things. And ECA tools will float that information to the top. I know that in that like 1 terabyte of information, only like 20 gigs are relevant. Right. Exporting that out. And it's a very efficient way to do doc review and makes, the whole scale of discovery more manageable. I think for some of us old fogies, discovery used to be papers and you would do boxes and boxes of papers, right? And we've entered this realm of technology where now it's like you have inboxes, you have Slacks, you have Messenger, you have text messages, and to go through all of that data without some sort of AI intelligence to limit that scope, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice because then you're sifting through irrelevant information, and that time costs money. It costs, contract reviewer time, lawyer reviewer time, second tier review. It's like that workflow just gets more and more expansive if you aren't more efficient with how you utilize AI in eDiscovery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Gosh, I remember the days of paper files. And I think you're right when you say that the legal area has been slow to catch on, unfortunately. I think that just thinking back and going through all those boxes and how helpful it would have been to have some kind of technology assisted review or anything like that. Now, of course, in the area that we're going into now with more AI, we have like the old AI, right? And then we have the new AI. I think where we're really going to see the magic happen is where we marry the two together so that we, like you were saying, Judy, are going through an immense amount of information and able to pull that information that we need right away, right to the top. It's really, really exciting. And I think one of the things that has been talked about that's going to be really neat too is AI summaries, right, of that information. I think that's going to be really cool. That's going to be a game changer because you're going from like, say, 250 pages of information to a 6-page summary. Now, of course, you're always going to have to be making sure that it's fact checked, that it's as you would expect, but it's going to be really helpful in speeding up the process.
Yeah. Kelsey, you just said old AI and new AI. And I think I know what you mean by that, but I think that would be super interesting to ask you to just go a level deeper, maybe define what you mean by old AI and new AI.
Yeah. So I don't want to steal Judy's thunder here because I feel like she kind of hit on it a little bit. But I mean, when we're talking about the technology assisted review, all of the eDiscovery stuff that has been around, it's been tested, and we've used it for a long time. But we do have the generative AI. We have the ChatGPTs, Bard, all the different ones that are coming out and that we've seen now. And I think being able to use the new AI, the generative stuff, to talk to the old AI is going to be just really neat.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way great lens and perspective to have on it. So I've got another question. I'm actually not sure which one of you might want to have the most passion and want to jump in on this. So I'll ask it, and then whichever one of you wants to take it away. So both of you talked about savings and ROI, and in your answers to my last question. in your roles with your teams and your departments, how do you track this or report on it or share savings, share about the savings and the ROI? How does this become something that is beyond just what you know in your expertise in your head that helps you make decisions? And how do you communicate it elsewhere outside of just you in your head and your work? I imagine that for our audience today, especially anyone who's wanting to get more involved in this, the answer to this question could be really useful to help them know how to start, though I will ask that question later specifically too. So for now, the question is, how do you track, measure, share, to who? Like, explain that process to us.
I'm happy to start just because I'm living this currently sort of right now, which is,
Okay.
in my current position right now, we're launching a bunch of new businesses. And one of the things that we're looking for is a better contract lifecycle management tool. And, right now with the explosion of AI, like to your point at the very beginning, Kelsey, it's like, every vendor has probably come to me talking about like AI this and AI that. And I'm like, great. Okay. So all of you, what is the differentiator, right? But Sarah, to your point, one of the things that we're looking for in one of the business cases for me to actually like push this through is showing just how much time having something automated, even without AI, having that automation of our old AI kind of having automation in place and showing just the time save that it is to each individual person that workflow touches. And I should say, and maybe we'll touch about this later, I should say that everyone should be excited about technology, but technology is not going to save everything. If you have if you don't understand your current workflows and you don't understand how things work, technology is not going to save you because you're not going to be able to connect what, your workflow A to workflow D, you just lob a platform on top of that. It's still going to be a crappy disconnect between point A and point D.
Yeah.
So technology has to be used strategically. And part of that journey is like, for instance, for me on my CLM tour is to essentially like map out my process first. What is my workflow? And then finding out like, where in this workflow can time be saved? Where are we spending too much money? Where are we spending too much time? Where would an automated platform be more efficient? And having that map in the first instance and showing that to the team, being like, hey, did you guys know that you guys on average spend like probably like 70 hours on like one workflow, when had we had proper automation services like in place, this could cut it down to like 10 hours. And it's like, oh my God, now we know why, like, it's kind of like, now we know why it takes so long and we can't get these turnarounds. And, you're going to burn out your team if you can't figure out more efficient ways to do things. And let's harness technology for good in that instance. So that's one example.
That's great. Kelsey, I'd love your perspective as well. Before I turn it to you for your perspective though, Judy, I'm curious, you just gave the example of a workflow taking 70 hours and with AI tools to help be more efficient, it could take 10. Is this hyperbole, or is this actually something that you have seen that significant of time savings in the past?
It's actual, like if you track the actual life, and this requires like, because we don't have anything in place, and this I've encountered this in multiple companies, it's a manual tracking, right? So you're depending on your team to be like, hey, so how many hours did you spend on this phase of this project?
Yeah.
How many hours did you spend on this one? And the last thing that your in-house team ever wants to do is track time, because that's why they left like law firm world.
Right.
So it's a painful exercise, but I will say that if it's for the good, if you can just have like a point in time of reference and you can like annualize that time. So if you're on that journey, like it's a big ask. So, treat your team with like coffee or something in exchange for timekeeping or something like that.
Oh, fantastic. All right, Kelsey, over to you.
Yeah. So Judy, everything you just said is so on point. Oh my gosh. So the manual time tracking, that's something that projects that I've worked on in the past to prove our ROI, we're doing that same thing, saying, oh my gosh, this process takes forever, but there isn't a system in place to track that time. So you just kind of have to bite the bullet and track it so you can prove your ROI. The other thing that I always keep in mind too is not just the time and money that you can save, but also by reinvesting that time and money elsewhere, you can really make an impact in your group, on your organization.
Say more about that, Kelsey. How
Yeah.
have you done that, or how will
Mhm.
you do that when you reach that stage in the projects you're working on? That's a fascinating topic.
Yeah, so this one hits home really close to me just because we just recently launched a project that took a lot of my time and gave it back to me so I could work on higher value work. So what we did is we have contracts that were lower risk, that we are using an automated risk ranking. So not AI, just automated risk ranking to make sure that those contracts stay within that low risk category. And we're applying AI to draft the last 3 paragraphs of each of these contracts. And we found that we were doing that the same way every time. It's just not a good use of anybody's time to be doing that. So we completely automated that drafting piece using AI. And I had been spending 30 some hours, I think a month doing this stuff. Well, now I have 30 more hours that I can work on more complex work. So I'm helping our contract cycle time, right? I can focus on other legal ops projects to help our whole department, help the company. Just getting that time back is really a huge win.
Wow. So that, again, just to remind us talking today, the topic of this was beyond the AI echo chamber and realizing returns in legal tech. Like, that is probably one of the biggest returns that I have heard. We've talked about 70 hours down to 10 potentially, and then 30 hours a month that can be reinvested into really high impact work on something that just simply wasn't before. That's very cool. That's really exciting. I would like now to take our conversation to a little bit of a different direction. The audience that is listening in today is primarily going to be in-house legal teams. And so in-house legal teams, there often is a conversation of balance between the work that the in-house legal teams do and then using outside counsel for support. So given, again, just to remind you and the audience who's here today that the majority of you are here from in-house teams, there are many ways to build an in-house team, and certainly AI can help you find efficiency and scale your team without needing to rely maybe as much on outside counsel. So the first question I have is just simply this: how has AI changed how you build your teams? And then also how you will build your teams in the future, and how you will consider when and how you will use outside counsel as a part of the work that happens in your companies.
Yeah, I think to start, I would say, like, I think AI is an exciting thing, but I go back to my workflow processes and about those automations, because that's kind of where you have to start before you start dissecting roles and responsibilities with outside counsel versus yourselves. Yeah. But I will say that I am in the future state of AI. I find it incredibly interesting, the generative AI that is happening amongst some of our most common legal platforms. Like if you look, for instance, at our research tools like LexisNexis and like Thomson Reuters, they've put generative AI that is closed to them inside their platforms now for legal research. And I'm curious to see how that plays out in the future, where, you know, my team can go to LexisNexis on their own, type in what they want. The generative AI is going to only be in our universe of their questions and getting those, what used to go to outside counsel, now they can answer themselves with a site-checked generative AI response from like a known legal research tool. So I'm kind of intrigued to see how that transforms. Maybe check in like 2 years and see how that's going. Yeah. But I do think it's an interesting dynamic shift that's happening right now. And I would love to, you know, talk to my lawyer friends and I'm like, how do you feel about this? Yeah. You know, and I feel like some of them are happy that like there is generative AI that can do this because it saves them that like 2-second phone call. But I think from like a outside counsel relationship perspective, they're kind of like, oh, are we going to lose that, hey, pick up the phone and talk to me relationship? So I will be intrigued to see how that relationship plays out in the next like 2 years. Yeah. Or it could be totally the same and no one wants to use AI at all there. So
yeah. Well, you know, what's a little bit interesting to me is how in the first part of this conversation, when we were talking about savings, neither one of you brought up the relationship between outside counsel and in-house counsel as a piece of that. And I was surprised actually to hear that. So it's interesting to me to acknowledge that right now there maybe isn't a lot of change. It's maybe in the future that we're just waiting to see how might this change. Kelsey, what's your view on this?
Yeah, I do think we're going to see a sea change for sure. But I think the sea change is going to be both in-house and at law firms. I think as there's higher levels of adoption at both, we're going to be, like Judy said, using that research to get those quick answers. But I do think for some situations, we're going to be asking, okay, is this a situation for our AI where is this a one-off situation, or is this going to be some kind of repeatable event that can happen over and over again, in that we can train the AI internally using whatever model is most appropriate so that we can handle this internally? Or do we expect our outside counsel to be able to have done all of that in this specific area so that we can go to them for that and not have to rely on anybody in-house?
Interesting. So a question that I was going to ask next, but you kind of are taking us there already, is around how you balance now and how you foresee balancing in the future when you would staff your team internally and have tools available to them to do this, and how you might have more of a blended approach. And I think that's what you were just referring to there. Is there anything you might want to add with that specific question coming at you? Is how would you determine when it should be your team in-house with tools versus a more blended approach where you would go to outside counsel?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very situation dependent. It's the it depends answer, right? Which everybody loves.
Yeah.
But no, I do think that it really depends on what the organization as a whole is going to be concentrating on. We've talked about how AI is bleeding into everything right now. And so I think there is going to be an expectation that firms do have these tools available to use and be used, so that clients can take advantage of the good work that's being done in the AI space. But I do think a blend of some sort, just situation specific, is going to be needed for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Judy, anything you'd like to add to that, or shall we move on to our next question?
I was going to piggyback off Kelsey and also add that for any outside counsel that might be listening, I should say, I don't think the outside counsel will ever not need to exist. I feel like there's always going to be a level of engagement because, an in-house team, if I were to staff my in-house team to all the areas of expertise I would need, my legal team would need to be 2,000 people. Right. I would need someone in every country and every jurisdiction. And that's just something that's not going to be on an in-house legal team trajectory. And that's where, I don't think that relationship with outside counsel will ever go away because I'm going to rely on them for their global network. Right. And their global expertise and things that I don't have someone in there that can be the subject matter expert, I'm going to rely on outside counsel for. And I think it'll be a really fun synergy between in-house and outside counsel, because I do think that outside counsels are also going to be, using generative AI and improving their workflows and their processes to make sure that their briefs are more time efficient. I also don't think I want, any of my in-house counsel or my external counsel solely relying on, AI. I do believe we all can. Now that very public lawyer who I think had a brief that was completely generated by AI and completely false. And I think poor guy, I think is getting disbarred, but nobody wants that situation. So let that be the lesson learned, that we're not quite there with AI. So I do think that there are ways to improve how each of the teams flow and enhance their processes.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that the outside counsel, in-house counsel relationship will ever fully dissolve or go away or be replaced by robots and technology. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Can I jump in here? I like that you said that because I feel like that's a really big fear that a lot of people have. I hear it all the time. No, you're training our replacements or whatever. But for those of us that work in this space all the time, I mean, there's some of the low value, low risk stuff that's being automated via AI, but you're always going to have a human in the loop in some shape or form because of all the stuff that can go wonky real fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just goes back to my whole point of like technology is not going to fix everything. I think even in-house teams, I think sometimes are afraid where they're like, oh my God, like this repetitive process that I do all the time, like is technology going to replace me? And it's like, no, it's going to make your life better, maybe make it more improved and streamlined so you don't have to go to 50 different places to find the same thing. But it's not going to replace you because it still needs that human intelligence to look and make sure and cross-check and be like, hey, that looks completely wrong. What did the machine teach itself today?
Right. Well, back to Kelsey's
Yes.
point from earlier today, I think on that, where if you save 30 hours a month on repetitive tasks that machines can do, that just frees you up for more impactful work.
Yeah, we're getting rid of all the headache work that is useful when, you're maybe first starting out or maybe trying to get into some of the nitty-gritty details, which you still can do. It's just AI assisted now, and it's going to make everything go so much faster.
Yeah.
And there's so many cool things coming out. Like I feel like what is it? Microsoft Suite has like Copilot, right? Which that's pretty cool. Like you can instantly take meeting summary notes for me and then like automatically look for a time on everyone's calendars to like follow up and like put a calendar invite. Oh my God. That's so awesome. That means that like that frees up so much time for someone that has to like look at a calendar and like schedule
really does.
send out an invite. So there's like really cool advantages that are people should be excited about, but like not to worry because it means that you can do other things now rather than, saving down a PDF every time and, having to folder it. You can use AI and automation to like put that where it needs to go automatically without ever lifting a finger, like how cool is that? So you can like focus on cooler projects that you want to do that will only enhance and improve your in-house team.
Right. It is pretty exciting, isn't it? Yeah. All right. So I'd like to now move on a little bit to the topic of teams adopting new technologies like this. Like any new technology, AI powered or not, just any new platform, there's challenges to adopting something new. And an AI influenced or AI powered technology comes with maybe even another level of adoption challenges based on what we talked about earlier today of maybe just the fear behind it. So what challenges have you faced so far in integrating AI into legal operations? And then is there anything specific that you want to share with the audience today in regard to strategies that you have used or what you would recommend for overcoming these challenges?
Do you have
one
another
thing,
2 hours?
Sorry. Seriously, right? Oh my gosh.
Go ahead, Kelsey.
Okay. I was just going to say the one thing that comes to mind for me is like we've talked about a couple times now here, the legal field is rightfully so a little afraid of AI, right? And so you're going to have users that are going to be very slow to adopt. You're even going to have users that are going to put their feet down and say, no, we are not doing this. They're going to be sticks in the mud. But what I have found is you find those adopters who are refusing to adopt, and you sit down with them and you get to the root of what is causing them the most heartburn. Is it a fear-based thing? Where is this coming from? As soon as you address that and get them on board, what you're going to find is that they're going to become your biggest cheerleaders and your power users.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's something I'd really find those people fast and get them on board so that they can help you out down the line.
Yeah, I feel like change management is like probably the hardest challenge for everybody, right? Because you have so many varying personalities, varying priorities. And it's true. It's having those very simple conversations and getting to the root of who you're advocating to and understanding their problem so that you can better address it and say like, I hear you and here's how this will help. And being that problem solver, like it really does it could be as simple as a conversation, like never assume in change management, never assume you know what everyone's thinking. Make sure you go out and actually talk to people and find out. And I do think it's also making things very clear, right? don't have like an overly complex, like 72-page like user manual for something that you're trying to change. Like make it so simple that it's like, hey, in these 3 steps, you can now do this. Or these 7, like a 1-pager, right? I think so people like they get really excited about launching new products and they want to show all the shiny new things. And it's kind of like, know your audience, problem solve for the very specific thing, and then make it short and sweet. You get one chance at like launching this commercial for like your product, and either they're going to love it or they're going to hate it, and that will determine how much they use it. So promote it well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's really great advice. I especially I love the advice that both of you had there. And I think the thing that was a little bit new for me was considering find the person that's your biggest detractor and get them on board. I think it is very common to think about, let's find the people who are early adopters and show their success, and that will make others then want to follow. And I think what I'm hearing from you that might be different with AI in legal tech is that might not be the best approach because of the fear that might be behind it. You've got to get the detractors, the people who are the most fearful on board first or early, and then you'll be more likely to have success. That's a great point. Yeah.
Thanks. I think one other thing too that I always try to keep in mind when implementing any kind of legal tech is it's not just a set it and forget it. You can't just launch and walk away from your users. You're going to need rolling training. You're going to be constantly checking in with your users and saying, hey, especially in the landscape we're in now with AI, like, is this still matching your needs? Like, is there anything else we could be doing? Because that way you're going to be building trust with the people who are using your system and making sure that for any launches you do in the future, you have that built-in system of people who are going to find you credible.
That's also
can I add to that too on the flip side of like, you should also, if you are using platforms of like legal technology platforms, like also make sure that those teams are still innovating. Those vendors should also not be set it and forget it. And if you have vendors who are like, hey, look at this cool shiny new thing, but there's no roadmap for like continually maintaining or improving or, enhancing, like I highly suggest you look at your platforms and make sure that they have come with teams that are always looking to like improve their product, because AI moves very quickly. And, certain platforms can get left in the dust if they don't continually innovate, and you don't want to be on one of those platforms. So,
yeah,
that is so true.
Advice. Yeah. So I'm hearing I want to recap on that because I think that is super important. So you're both saying that things move fast in legal tech, especially right now. And you've got one audience, which is your users at your company, that you've got to keep in front of what their needs are and how the tools that are made available to them are working. Conversely, you also have to be looking at the platforms that you're spending money on and make sure that they are continually innovating. So you've got 2 distinct areas that you need to spend time on that maybe you didn't need to spend as much time on in the past. That is maybe one thing that is changing. Judy, how, in case there's somebody here who doesn't know how to do that, how do you go about making sure that the vendors you are using are innovating? What do you specifically ask or look for or talk to know that?
You talk to your team and you also kind of look for their roadmap and ask continuously, like ask for their roadmap. Like, what are you guys planning to do in 2024? What's happening in 2025? And once you start using products, you will see where there could always be room for improvement. And just having that relationship with your vendors and your IT teams to make sure that like, hey, how's it working? Has it improved? Have they made any improvements? Are they requesting anything? No. Then you'll kind of start to see, you're like, okay, these folks aren't really investing in their own product. Like, why should I invest in them too? So
yeah. That makes sense. We are getting really close to the end of our time. I need to wrap up here quickly. I have the audience that is with us today when we are recording live have sent in a few questions. I don't think we have time to get to all of them. So I'm going to just kind of combine them into one question. And we'll answer the rest after the event on Wednesday with a follow-up Q&A blog post. But the questions that are coming in from today's audience are really around advice for new adopters. I feel like you have both given advice already for new adopters, as well as really thoughtful things to consider for people who are much farther along on their journey here. But to just think specifically about new adopters, what are a few things that you would suggest that they start today if they joined this webinar because that was their goal, is to make sure that they're leading their teams or participating in their teams in a way that is considering AI in the future? What should they do? What are maybe 3 things that they should be doing right now?
So I'd say there are a million entry points right now, which is amazing. And a lot of them are free. So get on ChatGPT, get on Claude, and just start using the technology. Get familiar with prompt engineering. So that's going to totally drive the results of what you're going to get out of this AI. So get familiar with that. And just honestly, don't be afraid of it. Get creative. It's going to be fun.
Thank you, Kelsey. Judy.
Literally the words out of my mouth. I was just like, just start, right? Like I think half the battle is understanding AI. And once you dive into it, you're like, this is pretty cool. And then you're like, how far can I go with this? So I think just getting that excitement out of it and taking the fear out of it. Because I do think that, AI is going to do some great things for us. And, if we use it smartly, it's gonna do wonders for the industry, I feel like.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Judy and Kelsey. I've very much enjoyed our conversation today, and I expect the audience today and in the future will too. To everyone who joined us today and who will join us in the future, thank you for taking the time to be with us here today. As we wrap up, I just want to remind you of a couple things. One, if you have any unanswered questions at all, please put them in the chat. We will be following up with that Q&A blog post. And if there's a question that's unique to you, we'll make sure that somebody gets in touch with you. Also, if you would like to learn more about Reveal technologies, which are all powered by AI, I do welcome you to click the demo request button that's in the top right of your screen here. And somebody from our team will be in touch to just learn more about your needs and recommend which Reveal technologies you might find useful to you in your journey right now. One last time, Kelsey and Judy, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Bye, everyone. I wish you a lovely day.